Welcome to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3. And this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings, but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. In today's table topic, we're going to be discussing the missteps of the left. You know, as the midterms approach, the political tactics have increased. I know that some say it's all a part of the process, but it seemed extremely challenging from time to time. And in the past, the narratives and these strategies have worked. So much so that we've seen over 90% of Black Americans have voted Democrat. And a majority of the Jewish population identifies as Democrat. All entertainers, academia, and over 90% of the wealthiest of our country. Until 2024. When Trump won the popular vote along with the election, we saw something. It appeared that the woke police forgot to prepare for what happens when everyone actually wakes up. So I want to have an honest conversation about why the Democrat Party is facing significant challenges heading into the midterms this election cycle. You know, it's no secret that they've made some pretty huge missteps through policy and tactics that they are starting to trip themselves up. And it's a very crucial time, and we've got to examine it. So let's break down some of the core issues that are eroding their support and all of their credibility. First, there's the culture of a forced hysteria and fear. From COVID mandates to climate change alarmism, Democrats have often allowed and relied on stoking fear to mobilize their base. But this constant state of panic has real consequences. It breeds division and it exhausts our voters. People are just simply tired. People are tired of being told that the sky is falling, especially when they don't see tangible solutions that address their everyday concerns or even the concerns that they claim is so bad and that we should be so afraid of. Next, there's this persistent attack on traditional values, the push to erase or redefine core societal roles. Their idea of moral standards has alienated so many Americans, from the announcement that there are more than two genders, to fighting for boys to play in girls' sports, to the emasculation of men and a disregard of the needs of our young boys, the disrespect of our faith, and the idea that they would embrace illegal immigration over Americans. Unfortunately, I can go on and on and on. But families, faith, and community are integral pillars of our society, and they're all under attack. And many feel these foundational principles are being dismissed or attacked in the name of what they call progress or progression. Then there's the narrative that everything is racist. I mean, good Lord, everything is racist. Every time I see a Black liberal make a comment about something, or they don't get something, or something doesn't go their way, the race card always comes out. So the left has this tendency to label every single issue, whether it be housing or education or policing or even highways, as racist. And that has become their rallying cry for controversy and division. But this hyper focus on race oversimplifies the complex issues that really alienate voters who see through the rhetoric, or worse, feel targeted or dismissed by it. And one of the most damaging divides they continue to prioritize, as I stated before, is assisting illegal immigrants over supporting American citizens. This relentless fight against ICE actions, along with policies that allow non-citizens to access government and public benefits and take advantage of our resources as if they are American citizens. These actions have left so many actual Americans feeling overlooked and betrayed. These policies are creating a complete disconnect. It's fueling frustration among voters who believe the government should prioritize the needs and safeties of its citizens. So all of these missteps are more than just political strategies. They're bigger than normal competition or just differences of opinions. They undermine the fundamental trust in our government and the belief that there are leaders who are working for the people. You see, when policies foster fear instead of hope, when they attack values instead of strengthening them, when they show favoritism over fairness, And they support the idea that we should somehow. Support begins to crumble. Because the reality is, the American people want leaders who will focus on solutions and not division. I truly believe we understand competition, but it shouldn't feel like one side is willing to destroy the country to prove a point. There were so many people who said, don't support President Trump. You know, he's a tyrant. He's a Nazi. He's all these negative things. However, he won the popular vote. You know why? Because he pushed issues that everyone can get behind rather than separating us and pushing division. He said, I know these are the things that you need. I understand these concerns and I'm going to fight for you. Ultimately, we want policies that are rooted in truth. We want elected officials that have integrity, and we want to have conversations that make common sense. If Democrats continue down this path, these midterms could be another wake-up call for them. A rejection of the rhetoric and a demand for real and effective leadership. All that being said, there are some actions that has taken place most recently that we must dig a little bit deeper into to understand. So after the break, let's talk about how the Dems rather sue the president than hand over their proof that they are using government funds to support illegal immigrants. And we have Democrats who would rather leave the state than ensure that the Texas district lines are fair. We're going to discuss all of this in depth after the break. Don't leave the table. We're just getting started. You're listening to The Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Guy, and this is the Church's Moment. There is an incredible opportunity to start a distinct pro-life ministry at your church. We started one at our church about 5 years ago, and the fruit has been tangibly beautiful. We do monthly meetings that educate and equip the body of believers on sanctity of human life issues from womb to tomb by bringing in and featuring different pro-life leaders from all over Georgia, as well as featuring different ministries like post-abortion healing ministries or foster care ministries. There are so many great community partners out there. And then the second part of this pro-life ministry is having a care team. This is an opportunity to show moms in crisis, moms in unplanned, unwanted, or crisis pregnancies that the church is the place to run to, that the church is a safe haven and a place to go for tangible help, real hope, true compassion, friendship, and discipleship. And yes, an opportunity to share the gospel in both word and deed. Brothers and sisters in Christ, will you consider starting a distinct pro-life ministry at your church? It's so easy. Please contact me today to find out how simple this is. You can contact me at my email, proverbs31:8@att.net. This is the Church's Moment.
Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King, and this is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. In today's table topic, we're talking about the missteps of the left. And as I continue taking a hard look at some of the critical missteps that are helping the Democrat Party lose large portions of their base as we approach the midterms, we have to look into some of these most recent missteps. So recently, the Department of Homeland Security signed an agreement allowing access to personal data for 79 million Medicaid users, including addresses and ethnicities. And so there are a lot of critics who are saying that this violates privacy rights and it mishandles sensitive information. Well, here's what I say. I say that you have no privacy when the government is your parent. It reminds me of going back to my teenage days. I don't know about you, but we weren't even allowed to shut the door of our bedrooms in our house. You know why? Because there wasn't any privacy. Why wasn't there any privacy? Because we didn't own anything. And our well-being was the responsibility of our parents. And the same goes for the government. Once you ask the government to take full control of your life, meaning your food, your shelter, your health care, you lose your privacy. And that's why you hear people say things like there's the government sector and then there's the private sector. But going back, the USDA is pushing to collect detailed records on tens of millions of food assistance recipients, including Social Security numbers. This effort faces fierce legal action. Separately, you also have the Biden administration's policies like offering benefits to illegal immigrants that have led to lawsuits from multiple states as well. So it's really like that Oprah meme, like, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit. And once again, the Democrat Party is defending non-citizens rather than itself. They're basically saying, I don't want to give up this information. And they seem to forget that it's essential to prioritize the interests of lawful American citizens when it comes to our government benefits. Because providing benefits to illegal immigrants undermines the rule of law. Rewarding those who have broken our laws creates this idea that our laws are negotiable. And it also encourages more illegal entry into our country. It places this unfair burden on the taxpayers, funding programs that should go to hardworking, law-abiding Americans who pay taxes, who serve in the military, and contribute to our communities. You see, offering benefits to illegal immigrants makes it hard to enforce our borders and to maintain national security. It also risks overloading our public services and our healthcare systems while leaving legal residents and citizens feeling overlooked and neglected. This is why there are so many who are supporting mass deportation. So while Democrats are fighting for those who are illegal, those who are citizens have to live in these conditions created by these broken policies. And this was the main issue that kickstarted the mass exit from the Democrat Party. And now it's getting worse. Do you remember so many Democrats were acting as if these migrants were not receiving benefits? To now find out that they rather sue the administration than hand over their food stamp and their benefit data. I mean, it kind of proves that they were giving out these benefits and that they haven't learned their lesson. And ultimately, I'm telling you, this misstep is going to lead to a continued mass exit coming into 2026. They must understand that the core belief is that those who live, who work, and pay into our system deserve priority and protections. We must uphold the rule of law and ensure government benefits are reserved for those who are here legally. So what does the numbers say? So 60 to 70% of Americans support building or maintaining border walls and increasing enforcement efforts as a whole. While you also have 40 to 55% who support a large-scale deportation. Let me break that down. Overall, a majority of Americans tend to support increased border security and enforcement, but there is a subset that is not necessarily a fan of the full-scale mass deportation, which targets just simply all unauthorized immigrants. Basically, they're saying that I want the people who commit crimes, I want the people who live in my neighborhood who annoy me, but I don't want everybody else to go. I'm okay with living with certain people. And this often garners less than half support. So especially, and a lot of this is coming especially from those who are non-conservative voters. And here's my argument with that. If you only want criminals to go away, then that would include every single person who broke into our country illegally. However, if you're saying I only want the people who committed crimes that are outside of breaking into the country illegally, then you're basically saying that, I like the people who are good and I don't like the people who are bad. Fine. However, how do you know? How do you know? Do we wait until they actually kill somebody? Do we wait until we start seeing crime increase? So I just think that's a dumb argument There's no choice. We have no choice but to issue mass deportation if you're going to do it, if you're going to do it fair. And these are the most hypocritical people because they're all about making sure that you don't do things unfairly. But at the same time, they're like, let me hand pick and cherry pick who I think are worthy immigrants to be here and those who are not, of the illegal class. Yeah, it's really ridiculous. So this is good for Republicans, but also reveals that we do have to increase patriotism because patriotism has definitely eroded. And when we get to the point where Americans respect immigration laws in Dubai, but they feel we don't need the same protections in their own country, we are either spoiled rotten in this land living as the fat king and just living way too good, or we just have a terrible relationship with compassion and the issuance of justice. Either way, Republicans are being criticized for pushing America first and patriotism, along with even brands like the American Eagle jeans, which, by the way, I cannot wait to buy some. I'm probably going to buy some today because I was looking at those commercials, and while everyone else was worried about her eyes and hair color, I was looking at the fit of her jeans. And I mean, and every girl knows it's really hard to find a good fitting jean. So I am looking at that. That matters more to me. But the facts remain that this is what is needed. And I believe that it will pay off come 2026 if we keep the focus on America and we keep the focus on American citizens. Moving on. Another misstep that's coming to the Democrat Party, it's not as widespread or well known, but it's certainly being pushed. And I keep hearing this thing pop up called ranked choice voting. You see, states like Boston are considering implementing ranked choice voting despite ongoing efforts and failures and concerns about how it may disenfranchise. California Governor Newsom vetoed ranked choice voting 6 years ago, citing its voter confusion. So what exactly is ranked choice voting? So in traditional voting, you pick your favorite candidate. For instance, in Georgia, the candidate that receives 50% plus one extra vote wins outright. But with ranked choice voting, you can rank candidates in order of preference. So like you'll have your first place, your second place, your third place, and so on. Check out this video that explains it a little bit better. Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you because we have hit our initial goal of 500 subscribers. Woo! And I couldn't be more grateful, and I couldn't have done it without you. So now it's time to set a new goal. My new goal is 1,000 subscribers. I know we can do it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't just watch, participate, become a part of this unafraid, unapologetic, always seeking the truth community. Your support helps us keep the content coming and growing and rocking and rolling. Thank you so much for being with us, and I appreciate each and every one of you.
In most parts of the United States, voters select a single candidate for each position on their ballot, and the candidate with the most votes wins. This is known as single-choice winner-take-all, which can sometimes result in the election of a candidate who earned only a small percentage of the vote, even when the majority of voters supported other candidates. But that's not the only way of electing our leaders. Ranked choice voting is another voting method which allows voters to rank their candidates in order of preference. In a ranked choice voting election, a candidate needs to earn more than half of the votes to win. All first choices are counted, and if a candidate has a majority, then they win, just like any other election. If not, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked that candidate as number one will have their votes count for their next choice. This process continues until a candidate earns a majority and is declared the winner. Let's look at an example. Here, you select orange as your first choice candidate, yellow as your second, pink as your third, and green as your final choice. The first choices are counted. Yellow earned 35%, orange 21%, pink earned 28%, and green earned 16% of the vote. Because nobody won more than 50%, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked him as their first choice have their ballots count for their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives more than half of the votes, or 50% plus 1. So what are some of the benefits of ranked choice voting? Ranked choice voting provides more choices, allowing more than 2 candidates to compete without fear of splitting the vote among like-minded individuals. Sometimes voters feel pressured to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. Ranked choice voting allows people to vote for their favorite candidate, not just against the candidates they dislike. With ranked choice voting, we see more positive campaigns and less negative advertising. Candidates are encouraged to reach out to as many voters as possible, including those supporting their opponents. They can build a winning coalition with like-minded candidates to earn voters' second and third choices. It's time to fix our democracy and make our elections work better for everybody. We can do that with ranked choice voting. Visit www.fairvote.org to find out how you can get involved.
Okay, I hope that helped, but if you're still as confused as I am, can you imagine trying to get 159 counties in Georgia to understand this? 159 county election offices that haven't had good leadership from a Secretary of State's office in the last decade, that have not felt like there was a connect between those who lead them and those who actually execute these elections. And data shows that ranked choice voting often damages trust, especially among seniors and new citizens, because it's complicated. And by disregarding ballots and miscounting winners, all of that stuff is like bound to happen. And we already got all these other irregularities we got to be concerned about. And we got people who are okay with a little bit of fraud. So, I mean, this is just terrible. And it's so interesting because I was at an event where there was mostly liberals who attended. And I overheard a few people talking about why they like ranked choice voting. And the primary focus was about how this style of voting protects the candidates from feeling like losers and having hurt feelings. I couldn't believe my ears. If they believe that handing out participation trophies in elections is now the new norm, then the Democrats are absolutely setting themselves up for a loss in 2026. Many of you may have heard, many may not, that my husband, Kelvin King, is running for Secretary of State here in Georgia. And he was asked by writer Greg Bluestein with the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, aka the AJC. He was on their podcast called Politically Georgia. And here's what he had to say about this topic.
Your thoughts on the idea of a ranked choice voting that would eliminate, or if not ranked choice, some sort of changes to Georgia's runoff system that would eliminate the need for as many runoffs as we already have?
I think we're trying to create solutions and not addressing the problem at hand. Like, if we had proper training with our election workers and staff, proper staffing, where they understand their roles, we have proper guidance and leadership from the Secretary of State's office, supporting them, preparing for waves of people and preparing for the ebbs and flow that goes to those lines. I think, and if we could accurately tally our votes, I think that we don't need a ranked choice system, because I think our current system has been working for a very long time. If a runoff is needed, then those resources can then be, and all the resources that ramped up for the general election, those resources can then be trimmed down and focus on that runoff. And I think that process can be a lot more efficient. So I believe if it's managed properly, we can maintain our current election, the steps and process in terms of our runoffs.
Kelvin King, Republican candidate for Georgia Secretary of State.
Although it's short and sweet, I couldn't agree more. If we have so many systemic irregularities in our current election process, complicating it further is a recipe for disaster. And I truly believe that it will show up to the detriment of the Democrat Party in 2026. And to be clear, throwing your name in the hat to run for office in this country is an honor. Your duty is done when you sign up to run. Winning can only be one person. And you know that when you sign up. So that means you're also accepting that there's a chance that you may lose. So protecting the feelings of candidates is just not on my radar. Now, before we close this segment, I have to talk about another misstep that could cost the Democrats greatly in 2026. And that's Israel. I mean, much like the Democrat Party, there is a divide in the Republican Party on this issue, but there's a huge difference. Republicans want to focus on America and stop funding the war. However, the same Republicans, while they may be disagreeing on whether the focus is off or whether we should fund or not fund, one of the things that we don't have an issue with, that we all agree on, is that there's an understanding that the threat is Hamas. The Democrats, on the other hand, and maybe a handful of Republicans, but mostly the Democrats, they believe that Israel is the problem. So there's recent debates in Congress highlighting how the left is divided, even on vital foreign policy issues. Congress rejected Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment to block $500 million in aid to Israel after the Hamas strike. While some Democrat members like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or AOC voted to support Israel's missile defense, others like Rashid Tlaib and Ilhan Omar backed the amendment to cut the aid. And when you see MTG and Ilhan Omar and they are like connected, we should all be concerned. But I have to ask, are they really? I honestly think not. I think MTG is against the administration on this one issue, but she will not be voting for a Democrat candidate. Omar, on the other hand, is supporting those who wish to dismantle the Democrat Party and tank elections. I mean, they're mentioning throwing people up to run against folk. I think they already threw up a Somalian guy to run against Hakeem Jeffries and all of that, but they're like actively trying to find candidates to run against Democrats. And this ideological divide reflects the broader chaos within the Democrat Party, its alienation of voters and its undermining of credibility. The fact that they are supporting terrorist organizations based on social media pictures that are circulating around with the whole focus of evoking emotion isn't a firm foundation. And considering that approximately 70 to 75% of Jewish voters tend to support the Democrat Party, this issue alone could cause a decline in support from a large portion of their base. This can certainly come back to haunt them, and I'm going to be watching. That's for sure. But here's the bottom line. These missteps, ranging from privacy violations and election chaos to foreign policy disarray, are why the Democrat Party is losing the trust of many Americans. And if you didn't think that was enough, the gift that keeps on giving has continued to give and is at it again. So after the break, the latest, most recent misstep by the Democrat Party, redistricting. You're listening to The Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Guy, and this is the Church's Moment. There is an incredible opportunity to start a distinct pro-life ministry at your church. We started one at our church about 5 years ago, and the fruit has been tangibly beautiful. We do monthly meetings that educate and equip the body of believers on sanctity of human life issues from womb to tomb by bringing in and featuring different pro-life leaders from all over Georgia, as well as featuring different ministries like post-abortion healing ministries or foster care ministries. There are so many great community partners out there. And then the second part of this pro-life ministry is having a care team. This is an opportunity to show moms in crisis, moms in unplanned, unwanted, or crisis pregnancies, that the church is the place to run to, that the church is a safe haven and a place to go for tangible help, real hope, true compassion, friendship, and discipleship, and yes, an opportunity to share the gospel in both word and deed. Brothers and sisters in Christ, will you consider starting a distinct pro-life ministry at your church? It's so easy. Please contact me today to find out how simple this is. You can contact me at my email, proverbs31:8@att.net. This is the Church's Moment.
Welcome back to the Janelle King Show. I'm Janelle King. This is Extra 106.3, and this is where we discuss kitchen table topics that are typically banned from family gatherings but are absolutely necessary in order to have a strong republic. And today we're talking about the missteps of the left. You see, as midterms approach and the left tactics continue to backfire on them, from the fear-based messaging from COVID and climate alarmism to race issues, has only bred division and exhaustion with voters, particularly Democrat voters. Their attacks on traditional values, their support of illegal immigration over citizens, and just the overall oversimplification of complex issues have alienated many Americans. So we're calling out the Democrat Party's biggest mistakes today and why they're losing support heading into the midterms. You see, their policies like broad government overreach are making Americans question who they really serve. So previously, we discussed the USDA and its demand for food stamp and food assistance records amid all the legal battles and more of the government overreach. We also talked about foreign policy and how it's just no better. Congress just rejected a move by MTG to cut aid to Israel after the Hamas attacks. Some Democrats, like Ilhan Omar, are supporting efforts to undermine our strongest allies, supporting terrorists, and circulating emotionally driven images that are costing them big when it comes to Jewish Americans. These mistakes threaten our safety, our sovereignty, and our trust, pushing voters away and setting up a tough 2026 for Dems. You see, the Democrats' reckless policies are a gift. They're not listening. They're not learning. And the gift just continues to give, which leads us to our most recent gift, the Texas redistricting. Now, to be fair, redistricting is taking place all over the country as there has been so much movement from New Yorkers becoming Floridians and Californians becoming Texans. So that has sparked some change. But this fight isn't just about lines on a map. It's about the future of fair representation and the integrity of our elections. For example, some of those that are in Congress right now are only there because they are in lines or within districts that were drawn to contain voters who vote with the party that they represent. And it makes it very difficult for anyone from another party to jump in and win those seats. And that's how we end up with California representatives overwhelmingly being democratically elected, although 40% of the voting base is Republican. You see, for years, Texans have relied on the process called redistricting, which is drawing a new district with boundaries, and they typically do this every 10 years after the census. The goal is to ensure that each district accurately reflects the population. But in recent times, the process has become highly political. And right now, there's a fierce battle between Republicans and Democrats over who gets to draw those lines and where. And Democrats argue that fair districts will favor Republicans and dilute their power. Meanwhile, Republicans insist that the current process is designed to maintain fairness and to prevent gerrymandering. When districts are manipulated to favor one party. Now you have this.
But right now, the governor has decided that he wants to waste more of Texans' resources by deciding that he's going to send out the troopers. And listen, I don't even think that he's going to do that. I think he's just talking. In fact, it is a cute little warrant that has a cute little frame on it. And so they like to talk a big game, but the reality is that, number one, you have a lot of intelligent attorneys that actually serve in the Texas House. And so they know that there's nothing that he can do outside of the Texas jurisdiction to bring them in. This is one of the reasons they are in another state. His authority does not extend throughout the entirety of the United States. So he's just talking the big talk so that, he can rile up his base. Ultimately, what will happen, we don't know. I know that we've been in litigation since 2021 over the current maps. I am one of the plaintiffs in that case, and I do know that the state the entire time has taken the position that they issued maps that were race neutral. And then all of a sudden, once they got a letter from the DOJ that talked about race, they somehow flipped the script and they decided that they wanted to do new maps, seemingly at their prompting. So now they're kind of dancing around their position, and now it seems like they're going to flip positions.
You've said that the new maps do nothing but divide, distract, and depress. What's your understanding of how your district will change if these maps do pass?
Yeah, so my district, what they did is they did a thing that they packed my district up, and then they cracked minorities from another community. And so what they've did is they've increased the number of African Americans in my district. But while they were cracking out persons from another community and packing them into my community, they also removed all the economic engines, which is yet another red flag. This means that I don't have Southwest Airlines or JSX Airlines or Dallas Love Airport or Downtown or AT&T or Goldman Sachs, and the list goes on, of amazing companies and corporations that I'm typically bringing in to make sure that we can talk about economic opportunities for the people that live in my district, including getting rid of the medical center in my district as well.
In response to this plan, we've seen Democrats in states like New York and California say that they would look into redistricting as well. Would you encourage them to do that?
I absolutely do. We are in a fight for the soul of this country. Morality seems to be out the window, and legality seems to be out the window. But hopefully we can bring some of that back. And it is going to take a real fight. And sometimes you got to get down on the level that they're on. These people they're grimy. It is time for us to show other Democrats and even independents, or honestly, Americans, that we are up for this fight, that we are not weak, that we will not allow a bully to punch us in our face and then say thank you and I'm sorry, but instead we are not only going to punch you back, but we are going to knock you out. So I fully anticipate that we are going to take control of the United States House, because that is what the American people want. And that is why Donald Trump and his regime is so afraid, because they know that they have not done anything to better anybody's lives, no matter how you affiliate yourself and no matter where you live in this country. He has done something to hurt all of us. And it is time for our voices to be heard, because that is what a democracy looks like.
Of every single Democratic state, and it's just like the examples I put up there. They have gerrymandered their states left, right, sideways. They're saying, well, they're gonna do to their states what you're doing in Texas. They already did it in all of these blue states. Frankly, Republicans should have caught up a long time ago.
Well, Sean, first of all, Texas is doing what we are allowed to by the law. And one reason why that law exists the way that it does is because the Democrats brought a lawsuit after our last redistricting. And that decision and that lawsuit came out last year. And that lawsuit recognized that coalition districts are not required. And so Texas has a right to redraw these lines to fully represent the desires of every voter in the state. But, Sean, that misses the point here. The point here is that Democrats have done something that's very un-Texan. They've turned their backs on their fellow Texans. When it came to a fight, they turned and ran away, not just from this redistricting fight. They ran away from dealing with the flooding issues that are still echoing across the Kerrville area. Families desperately need results from the state legislature in this 30-day special session that are not going to be delivered because Democrats are hanging out in Chicago and New York and other places.
Yeah. All right. Let me run through the states. California, Republicans, 39% of the House vote, but they only have 17% of the seats. Connecticut, Republicans, 40% of the House vote, 0 seats, none, zip. Illinois, 2024, Republicans, they got a pretty respectable 47% of the statewide vote, 18% of House seats. Maryland, one of the bluest states, Trump gets 35%, but they only have 12% of House seats. Massachusetts, again, 0 House seats. Nevada is even worse. Republicans win the state. They won the state House by 10 points, walked away with 1 single House seat in the entire state. That's it. So this has been the practice of these states for the longest period of time. Now they want to attack you, and I'm thinking, okay, what you're doing is exactly what they did.
Well, and not even that, Sean. To be honest, the Texas maps are not going to be as extreme as those other blue states that you talked about. But another thing, and that is what Texas is doing under these new maps. 4 of the 5 new seats will be a majority Hispanic seats. One of the seats is going to restore the Barbara Jordan seat over in the Houston area. And so these are seats where Democrats are having to come to grips with the reality. And that is, they are now losing the votes of Hispanics and black voters in the state of Texas. And these districts are going to show that Hispanics and blacks, as well as others, are voting for Republican, and Republican is their candidate of choice. And we will ensure that will be achieved at the congressional level in the state of Texas.
Well, certainly it should be somewhat proportional to what the vote is. What is your response to Kathy Hochul, who says that we are at war over Texas and the redistricting push that's going on in Texas?
There's a bunch of crazy bluster. Democrats are freaking out because they are realizing Texas has the authority to redistrict, and we're going to do so in a way that's going to lead to these additional seats that will vote Republican, and they will be serving in Congress in the next session. And so Democrats are freaking out about it, engaging in rhetoric, but I don't think they have the capability of actually living up to it and doing anything about it. Texas will continue to fight for what is right, and that's exactly what we are doing.
Is it a fair statement to say that Republicans, in terms of the percentages and numbers that they have voted, have been unfairly cheated out of their representation? I think that's a more fair statement.
Well, a different way to say it, and that is, at least in Texas,
and not your state, I'm talking about blue states.
Yeah, and I'll talk about both. In Texas, we are going to ensure that voters are going to be able to vote for their candidate of choice. For example, I think Donald Trump won in all 5 of these seats that we will be making Republican seats. The same thing should apply in all those other states, Sean, that you mentioned in your monologue, where you pointed out the gross gerrymandering in these blue states have rejected Republican candidates for office that should be serving those states, should be serving our country. It's the gerrymandering in the blue states that has distorted the politics in America.
All right, Governor, good for you. Good for the fight. We'll see if these guys...
Personally, when I hear people use the demographic makeup as their defense, I think 2 things. 1, they do not want to campaign. And 2, they do not have policies that are not race or gender focused. It shouldn't matter who lives in the district. What matters is what issues concern the district. But so many people see politics as a stepping stool rather than a responsibility. And we, the people, it is up to us to put a stop to this. The truth is, redistricting is complex, but it's also vital to our republic. Fair maps gives voters a choice, preventing majorities from silencing voters and helping ensure our elections truly reflect the will of the people. This fight is not about just politics. It's about safeguarding our rights and protecting our communities, ensuring that every voice is heard and heard fairly. The truth is, the American people want leaders who focus on solutions, policies rooted in truth, integrity, and common sense. If Democrats keep going down this path, the midterms will be a wake-up call, a demand for real leadership that puts Americans first. Something fundamental that I believe every single voter needs to remember is that as we head into these midterm elections, you must take your vote into your own hands. Too often we see people motivated by all of these sensational headlines and the emotional appeals, but real power lies in your own research, digging into the facts, looking at both sides of the story, and getting the truth. And when it comes to voting, the most important thing isn't just party loyalty or supporting a candidate because of their name. It's about connecting to principles, what really matters for the future of our nation. Our values, our safety, our freedoms. Those are what should guide your decision, not political tribalism. We also need to be honest with ourselves, because pride often gets in the way, but we must be willing to acknowledge when the mistake was made. Because whether by a candidate, a party, or even ourselves, there's a truth that we can never forget. And that's that true compassion isn't about giving people what they want. It's about providing solutions that lead to real, lasting change. It's about hard decisions and not quick fixes. Leadership means setting a course that benefits everyone in the long run, not just catering to momentary demands. So as you walk into the voting booth, I want you to remember something. Remember that you're responsible for the future of our nation. Do your homework, connect with principle, not partisanship. Be humble enough to admit when you're wrong and committed to voting for what is right. Because we stand together, focused on truth and dedicated to our values. We can and we will build a better, stronger America. Until next time, stay unapologetic, stay unafraid, and never stop seeking the truth.